Queen Victoria, the widow on the table. It is 22nd of January 1901 and Osborne House on the Isle of Wight has fallen into silence. After 63 years on the throne, Queen Victoria, Empress of India, Grandmother of Europe, and the woman who reshaped the monarchy into a global brand, is dead. She is 81 years old, blind in one eye, rheumatic in her joints, and so swollen with age and obesity that her attendants can barely move her. For weeks, she has drifted in and out of a coma, murmuring names, slipping away in fragments until her heart finally fails. The official bulletin is neat and restrained. Her Majesty died peacefully, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. Cause of death? A cerebral hemorrhage, a stroke. But Victoria, ever the master of control, had forbidden any autopsy. She did not want to be dissected like her grandfather, George III. She wanted her secrets to remain buried. Yet here we are. We are going to do what her doctors didn't dare. We're going to cut her open, layer by layer, and read the story her body would have told if she had been given a modern post-mortem. This is Crowned and Autopsied, Queen Victoria, The Last Days. Victoria's decline had been painfully obvious. Once robust, she had grown progressively weaker after the 1890s. Her letters mention fatigue, swelling in her legs, clouded vision and forgetfulness. She frequently nodded off mid-conversation, sometimes seemed confused, and her appetite dwindled. On the 18th of January 1901, she suffered what we would now call a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke. 4 days later she had another, more severe. By the 22nd she was unconscious, breathing shallowly, and slipping away. Surrounded by Edward, Wilhelm, and her many children, she finally died in the evening. The external examination. Now she lies before us, a small elderly woman, just under 5 feet tall, but wide and heavy-set in her coffin. In her youth she was famously plump. In her old age she was obese. Her face is pale and waxy, jowls sagging. Her ankles are swollen with fluid, the telltale mark of heart failure. Her joints are stiff and knotted with rheumatism. Her skin shows the blotchy mottling of poor circulation. She looks every inch the matriarch of empire, but her body tells us the truth. Decades of vascular disease and metabolic decline. Opening the chest. The chest is opened. Immediately the heart commands attention. It is enlarged, its walls thickened from decades of battling high blood pressure. The coronary arteries are narrowed, clogged with fatty plaques. Victoria has severe coronary artery disease, the silent killer of the modern age. The lungs are heavy and congested, with fluid pooling in the lower lobes. This is the drowning effect of congestive heart failure. For years she had struggled with breathlessness. Now we see why. If she had lived in the age of blood thinners and statins, this might have been managed. In 1901, it was a death sentence. Into the abdomen. The knife travels down. The abdomen opens. Fat tumbles forward, thick yellow deposits smothering every organ. The liver is pale and greasy, classic fatty liver disease, the result of obesity and a sedentary life. The pancreas is scarred, showing signs of type 2 diabetes left undiagnosed and untreated. Her medical records mention excessive thirst and fatigue, symptoms her doctors wrote off as old age. The kidneys are small, shrunken, granular. They have been damaged by years of high blood pressure and diabetes. Victoria was heading towards chronic kidney disease, though no one dared suggest such a thing to the Queen. The intestines show irritation, likely from decades of heavy meat diets and minimal fibre. A lifetime of lavish royal dining has left its signature on her gut. The brain. Now the skull. Sawed open carefully, the brain is revealed, and here lies the final chapter. A large dark pool of blood sits in the left hemisphere. This is the cerebral hemorrhage that killed her, the stroke that silenced the Queen. The surrounding tissue is softened, compressed. Elsewhere, the brain shows scars of previous, smaller strokes, evidence that Victoria had been suffering minor cerebrovascular accidents for years. These would explain her increasing drowsiness, confusion, and lapses in speech. The arteries in the brain are stiff and narrow, severe cerebral atherosclerosis. Every vessel is a brittle pipe waiting to burst. This was not a sudden event. It was the culmination of years of damage. Modern diagnosis. If this were written up today, the cause of death would be clear. Primary cause, intracerebral hemorrhage, stroke. Contributing conditions, long-standing hypertension, coronary artery disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes mellitus, chronic kidney disease, rheumatism and immobility. In short, Victoria was a walking case study in what we now call metabolic syndrome, the deadly combination of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Lifestyle and risk factors. Her decline wasn't mysterious. Victoria's later life was sedentary. She spent long days writing letters, knitting, and sitting in heavy mourning. She hated exercise. Her diet remained rich: meats, gravies, puddings. She ballooned in weight. By the 1880s, attendants noted she was difficult to lift. This obesity fed her diabetes fed her vascular disease, and the vascular disease fed the stroke that killed her. The funeral secrets. But while the autopsy reveals disease, the funeral preparations reveal Victoria herself. She had scripted every detail. She would wear her wedding veil. She would be buried with Albert's dressing gown. And, in a final flourish, a lock of John Brown's hair and his photograph hidden beneath the lace. Even in death, she managed her own narrative. The doctors may have been forbidden to publish her diseased organs, but the woman herself ensured her burial carried its own scandal. The final irony. George III's doctors cut him open but ignored his brain. Victoria's doctors barely looked at all. In both cases, history was denied the full truth. But if we imagine her on the autopsy table, the picture is clear. Victoria did not simply die of a stroke. She died of decades of vascular disease, obesity, and diabetes, the same killers that haunt the modern world. The Empress of India, grandmother of Europe, ruler of half the globe, reduced at last to a brain drowning in blood and a heart smothered by fat. So that is Queen Victoria on the mortuary table. A heart enlarged by empire-sized stress, lungs drowning in their own fluid, kidneys scarred, liver greasy, brain burst by a final catastrophic stroke. The official verdict said, peaceful death. The autopsy tells us otherwise. A body battered by years of decline, a queen felled not by assassins or conspiracies, but by the same diseases that plague ordinary mortals. That was Past People, Queen Victoria. One queen, one forbidden autopsy. Maximum arteries clogged with empire-sized gravy.